Yes, certainly. We looked at the whole aspect of load shedding and how to deal with electricity and alternative supplies at least a year ago. And one of our big considerations at the time was that Eskom tariffs were increasing rather rapidly, and your prices for renewables were in fact starting to get cheaper than Eskom costs. So what we said to ourselves was we need to start mitigating that risk of increasing tariffs by starting to look at our own infrastructure. In other words, how could we then start generating electricity ourselves at using renewables at a cheaper cost and a cost that we could then control going into the future, while then also balancing that out towards our own installations and our own infrastructure. So it became a whole issue of that escalating cost, obviously, how to become a lot more resilient in terms of providing your own generation, and also bearing in mind that this load shedding issue was probably going to get worse, and therefore we needed to look and see how we could manage that process.
What was or is the strategy to implement these alternatives?
Yes, in looking at the alternatives, what we then said is we obviously need to look at the shorter through to a longer term type of strategy. And we immediately started to look at aspects of energy efficiency, what we could do there, and how we could handle that. And then also at the same time, how do we protect our revenue going into the future? And in terms of energy security, possibly also just looking at this aspect of own build, where we start providing our own solar PV plants. And already last year, in last year's budget, we put amounts of capital on our budget to start putting in solar PV plants. So that was what our strategy was. And, I think we could probably just expand on that. And with me today is Mr. Mandla, our Bongani Mandla, our electrotechnical director. And he can probably just expand a little bit on some of that work in terms of the strategy that we've adopted and that we are working on and actively working on, and what we've achieved in about a year down the line, and then how we're going to take that forward.